I'm Aura, and I am the host of Collective Mind.
Hello.
Who are you?
Well, you don't know who I am?
No, I do, but they might not.
How dare you?
Onyx is here with me, and we are going to do some grinding in Dofus while we answer questions about partner systems. So the first thing that I'm going to do to grind, now that I've finished Incarnum, is to go back to Incarnum. Because I didn't quite get my hunter level high enough to leave yet. So first question, what is a partner system?
Is this like one of those what are we moments? Because if so, I'm terrified.
So partner systems are just when two systems have at least one, I would say at least one romantic relationship between them, but you could argue that it would still be partner systems if it was like close friendships.
Yeah, definitely.
I know you said I don't have to do that, but I wanted to. But like in our case, we're partner systems because we have two separate romantic relationships between different alters across our two systems. And we live together and all that stuff.
Our systems are partners, not necessarily an individual alter.
Right, exactly. So like the next question is, are you dating the host? And in my case, I happen to be dating the host.
Same.
But that's not what being partner systems means. You're not automatically dating the host. You're dating whichever alter or alters you discuss being in a relationship with. So you're also not, like we said, automatically dating everyone in the system, for sure. Especially in the case of like littles and stuff like that.
Yes. And I'm not dating Jade at all, and you're not dating Sid at all. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that was actually the next question. I got ahead of myself. If you're dating one of the alters, then doesn't that mean you're dating all of them? Which, no.
I'm close.
I compare it to roommates. It's like the body is an apartment and the alters are sharing the apartment but are not the same person, obviously. So if one of your roommates was dating somebody, that would not mean you were dating that person.
I think a big common misunderstanding, especially for systems, is that every alter is their own individual person, and it's not just like someone who puts on a different mask or face switches out.
Exactly.
Like, they are all 100% different people, and it's not the same at all.
Exactly.
It's not like a mask is switching out. It's not any of that kind of shit.
Yeah. Let's see. Next question is, what if the alter or alters I'm dating integrate? Which we're actually, yeah, we have had that happen. So
Twice, actually.
yes, each of the
No, more than twice. Way more.
Each of the relationships that we have has had that happen at least once. So in our case, you have integrated.
Yes, and Jade has.
And Jade integrated
times.
multiple times. So, it's complicated because it's possible it would change the status of the relationship. There should definitely be communication about that. But it's also very possible, like in our case for both of those relationships, it didn't change the status of the relationship, just the person they were dating was a bit of a different person now. Because these also weren't, I don't want to say like dramatic, but they weren't the types of integrations that super change like the personality traits and stuff of the person.
I mean, it did change them a fair bit, but I think there's a shorter answer for that question.
Yeah.
If your partner integrates, just communicate with them.
Yeah.
Talk if you want to continue the relationship, and see what's changed and take it slow again, because they're gonna have some aspects that are the same, but there's gonna be some different ones, and you can't assume that everything is gonna be the same as it was before. It needs to be reestablished, rediscussed. Consent needs to be gotten again.
Absolutely.
A lot of it's really important to make sure you and I understand that can be difficult, and a lot of people who are singlets might think that that's really difficult to do, but in reality it's pretty easy. You just have to talk about it a little bit and know that things could change, and that doesn't mean everything did or it's the worst thing in the world anymore. It's just stuff changes, and that's okay.
And it might be like not a long list of complicated conversations. It might be like a short conversation where you say, like, where you talk about having integrated and then say, I don't think anything previously established has changed, or I think this thing has changed but nothing else, or let's take it really slow and act like we're starting the relationship over. Or it might be like a simple thing.
Left one.
It might not be a long list of complicated conversations, but it might be, and some of those things also might change. Like, you might think that everything is going to be the same, even as the alter who just integrated. You might think it's going to be the same, and then realize as it starts happening that it's different, and that you want to change boundaries about something. And in that case, you would just have another conversation about it. So communication and consent and not making assumptions are the really, really big things.
Left one more. There's also could be some like small lifestyle changes that happen. Like if a super feminine person integrates with someone who's a little bit more punky and goth, they might like a goth look or like a pastel goth, because that's kind of a mixture of those two, a soft goth. So you might find that they want a tattoo, or maybe they're okay with piercings or coloring their hair. They might want to change their name, their pronouns might be different. And while some of that is a learning process and it can be hard to adjust to, it's not usually that difficult in comparison. And
there also could be like a gender change with integration. Like we've had that happen. Jaden in our system is non-binary, and they are an integrated alter of what used to be a male alter and a female alter. So their gender changed when they integrated, and that could definitely affect a relationship. So there are things like that that you would want to consider and talk about, like we said. So the really big thing is communication.
Be open to learning about the new person and change, because if someone integrates, it happens for a reason. Sometimes it's planned, other times it's not, other times it's necessary. And it's not the easiest thing to handle. So having someone else on top of that be like, well, I liked you better than you were, like I liked you better before this happened, I miss the times when we would hang out and listen to Purple Rain instead of Queen. Like, it's okay to miss the old times, but also it's a new person and part of them is still there, and it can hurt them a lot. And this one goes out to people who are directly abusive but don't want to admit it or whatever. If you try to make them split again, there is 100% chance that they will not split back into the people that they integrated from. That it's not the same as like gluing two pieces back together and then splitting them along the glue lines. It would be a fully formed new piece entirely, and when you shatter it, it could shatter it into many pieces, and none of them are going to be the ones that you knew before, and that's just not a good thing to do. So you might not like it, but it's not really your choice or up to you. It's just kind of how life happens.
It ran away.
Even if you're not directly trying to be abusive, if you have the thought process and like try to act on it or ask about it, that's really not okay.
Yeah, for sure. So the next question is, are there extra challenges dating someone who's in a subsystem? So I guess I will direct this question to you. Are there extra challenges dating me because I'm in a subsystem?
Yeah. But also at the same time, no. It's slightly odd because given that you are in a subsystem, a bit like a singlet dating a system, it's pretty much the exact same. I have to be wary that you can switch, and that the person I started dating, since I didn't know you were a subsystem at the start, and neither did you, is not the same idea that of the person that I'm dating now.
Right.
And
I don't know if I can reach that.
it honestly makes my relationship with you easier in some senses. It makes it a lot slower, so I end up getting to know you just because there's more time, and I get to know the subsystem more and everything else. But also, it's easier in some senses because I am friends with everyone in your subsystem that I know of. At least I think. Besides the one person who is being a persecutor.
Right.
And that's different, but yeah. So there's some extra challenges, but not really at the same time, because no matter what, I get to hang out with someone that I'm friends with.
-1, -5.
Okay. So even if you switch in your subsystem or whatever, it's okay. There's extra challenges because you're not around all the time. There tends to be a lot of littles.
Right.
And it ends up feeling more like we're good friends than in a deeply committed man and wife kind of adult style relationship. It feels more like we're teenage friends or high teen friends who are dating just because of the time and everything else that's going on. And it doesn't mean I love you any less. It just means that I have to take things slower, and there's more to it than that.
Yeah.
But it's also like hanging out with your best friend all the time, and like a big friend circle too. But only one at a time, which is perfect for an introvert.
True. Yeah, there was also, I got Jade's permission to discuss this, but there was some complication before Jade integrated when she found out about her subsystem, where Primal was trying to figure out if they also wanted to be in a relationship with Sid. They were trying to figure out their feelings, and because there's such slow amnesia in some of our subsystems, at least, there's very low emotional amnesia if you're close to each other.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of emotional bleed, and Primal was trying to figure out how much of it was emotional bleed and how much of it was their feelings. And that could have become complicated if Jade and Primal had not ended up integrating. So
I mean, it could have, but they handled it at the time just by communicating and talking about it and being honest about feelings, even if it seems intimidating as fuck to do.
yeah.
Because, like, it was a scary thing, and neither you nor Jade likes to share their relationships entirely.
Yeah.
So it would have been semi-complicated.
Yeah.
But personal views and values, they grow and change over time anyway. So, as long as you're with the right kind of person who isn't trying to hurt you, it should be fine.
Yeah. Next question.
Yeah.
How do you navigate relationships between people who don't like each other?
Ooh.
And then maybe give an example if possible.
Ooh, that's difficult.
So boundaries is part of it. Boundaries and consent is definitely a big part of it.
Without going into specifics of a situation, in general, if I notice that there's anybody in collective system who has issues with me, one, it's perfectly okay. I am not going to get along with everybody out there.
Yeah.
I know I'm not going to get along with everybody, but I still try to get along with as many as I can, because it is nice if I can get along with them. And if I don't, I try to find out why we don't get along. X person doesn't like being around other people or having a roommate. They like to be self-sufficient.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. I didn't do anything wrong to them, but I didn't know that at the time. So me trying to be caring and helpful to them was not great, so we got off on a bit of a rough start.
Yeah.
But after a little bit of talking with them, I found that out, and it's like, okay, that's very easy. Communicating and talking with them and finding out, like, you don't like it if I offer to get you something or ask about your well-being. Like, you just don't like that. So every time I know they're out, I try to adhere to that like I would with any other friend.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's really easy for me because, but not for other people, because I live with you. I can see the very, very distinct differences between you all.
Yeah.
And I notice that there's a lot of differences and changes for everything, so it's not as big of a deal. And it's just like having other friends, you know, some friends you joke about stuff with, other friends you don't, because it makes them uncomfortable. Everybody's different, and we treat other people different all the time.
Yeah.
And it really helps to have the mindset that every alter is a literal different person, even if they have some history. And the easiest way to get along with people is to find out what about you they don't like, or to tell them what about them that you don't like, but not in a jackass manner.
Right. There's also an important thing to clarify here, which is that not liking someone is different from mistreating them.
Yes.
And not liking someone is perfectly fine, but mistreating them is not.
Correct.
So if, like, we've had some cases of boundaries being crossed on purpose from alters who didn't like each other, and that was handled by protectors, essentially, of just setting firmer boundaries and changing how those situations would be handled, where if, like, say a particular persecutor really doesn't like a specific alter from the other system, then we had a case where the boundary was we have to announce if that persecutor is close, or if they switch, they have to say that they switched, and then a protector from the other system is going to at least be very close, so that those two alters who don't get along to that extent aren't spending time together. Because if there's crossing of boundaries and things like that, that's not okay. So that's definitely handled differently than just not liking each other.
Yes, very much so. And also, even if someone doesn't like something about me, or they have a particular problem with something I do, if what I'm doing isn't a problem for the rest of the system, like it's not a blatant character flaw of I'm being abusive, or something like that, and it just involves me, like I wear clothes that make me feel comfortable or whatever, and they don't like my style, okay, that they don't get a say in my consent for what I wear.
Yeah.
So if they don't want to be my friend because I like crop tops or whatever, that's up to them, and that's okay. I can do what I want to not agitate them.
Yeah.
Or I can do what I can to not agitate them. But it's okay if people don't get along. Just try to coexist as best you can, because DID, you can't change bodies. You can't just go away. You have to share the body, and especially living with the partner system, communicating constantly to try and coexist between alters, because you share a place and everything else. Not everybody in our system knows that we have a partner system yet, just because it's difficult to get that information to them at times because they're very closed off. Or some people in your system don't. So we have things in place to help inform alters that, hey, we're this person, this has been going on for a while, or this thing is going on, or whatever. Like, we have communications, we have things put in place for random scenarios that might happen.
Yeah.
And we just try to coexist as best as we can with them, because it is rough, and I understand and empathize with suddenly having a roommate that you don't like, who is emotionally involved with one of your other roommates, and suddenly you're just very close to someone that you don't know and don't like, and you don't want anything to do with them, and that's understandable. A lot of system things and disagreements and everything else can be handled if you communicate and take time. Like, a lot of it can be handled if you give it time and communicate. Because this is not easy. It's not an easy disorder to have, and it's definitely not an easy one to live with. But we do what we can.
Next question is, how close do other alters need to get before boundaries change?
What do you mean?
Like, close co-con of, would you start acting differently if you knew that Jade was super close co-con?
That entirely depends on why they're co-con. And that comes from how good your communication is with them.
Yeah.
If a little is close and we're in the middle of, like, doing something more adult related or more extreme than a little should be around, we will stop that. If the person is choosing to stick around, they are giving their consent by staying to be there, because everybody needs a turn with the front eventually, and it's not really fair to, like, stick around the front so someone else can't do something.
Right.
Like, that's controlling and manipulative. So we have it set up boundary-wise between our systems that if my fiance's out and Jade is close or whatever, I'm allowed to kiss my fiance as long as they consent. I try to ask consent for that all the time and stuff like that, just to make sure that it's okay and a good time for it. And if Jade is close, I'm not doing it to kiss Jade. And if Jade is choosing to stay by and they don't like that, they're making themselves uncomfortable by choosing to be around that situation.
And that's not your fault.
Yes. If they can't help it and they're triggered, if I'm doing something that will worsen the trigger, I should really be analyzing what I'm doing and decide if that's really that important.
If they're stuck and they set a boundary, it's as though they're fronting and set a boundary.
Correct. Yeah, that's another thing too.
Next question. Do your protectors think of your partner system as someone who also needs protecting, or as someone who needs protecting from, and has that changed over the course of your relationship?
That's complicated.
That depends on the protector, and it is sometimes both.
Yes.
I would argue it's always the possibility that they could need protecting from. That's always somewhere in the back of a protector's mind.
Yeah, because that's with everybody, is this person, while we trust them to an extent, technically they know things about us and could, if they chose to, turn around and hurt us.
Yeah.
But we trust them, and so far they've been good about it.
Yeah.
So the protecting from them isn't as much of an issue. It's sort of something that all protectors do that I notice is just being aware that things could always turn bad, and having some kind of plan in place mentally to, I'm going to set boundaries or do this, or if more drastic measures need to be taken, I'll do this.
Yeah.
And at least for Sid, it's definitely more of a I need to protect you as well mentality.
Yeah.
Not because you're weak or anything like that, just because we care about you and want to protect you.
Yeah.
Because you're very important to us. And so, yeah, our protectors feel like you need protecting as well, and will jump to your defense, but that's also just because you're important to us, and it could be explained as being self-serving, because protecting you protects my emotions, so if you don't get hurt, I don't get hurt, kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh, that was the other thing I was going to say earlier, is this is kind of related to this question, because there are some protectors, at least in our system, who aren't 100% comfortable with the partner system relationship at all.
Entirely.
And a big thing about that is they don't have a say in my relationship. So my comfort level with my fiance is not up to them, and my consent with my fiance is not up to them, which is a frustrating thing sometimes, because there are some things that are definitely going to be discussed and like agreed together. An example of that would be like living together is something that affects everybody. But outside of things like that, when I'm fronting and my fiance is also fronting, whatever we do is nobody else's business unless they're stuck like we brought up earlier.
Yeah.
So,
and specifically also,
or unless it's a safety issue. Like if you were abusing me and I was putting up with it, that would be different for a protector
entirely.
to jump in for something like that.
On a side note, that only applies to things that are just between our systems. That is not how that works if, let's say, I had a partner outside of our two systems, like another body that was physically here.
Yeah. Because
that would change a lot of how we act and interact. It wouldn't be the same entirely at all if, let's say, Jax from our system had a relationship with your sister. Like,
right.
It would be entirely different for them, because it's not just the two bodies, it's more than that, and there's other things that would have to go into that to be discussed, and communicating, setting boundaries for it. It's
my consent that matters in my relationship. Next question. How do you go about seeking comfort when you're at the front but your partner isn't? That strongly depends on who other than my partner is fronting, because I have, like, I'm really close friends with Sid, for instance, and I would seek comfort from Sid if Sid were out.
It depends definitely on if a friend is out or if it's someone that you don't know.
This also kind of gets into the question of, like, asking for your partner, which is complicated.
It does. I like to think that I have a good answer for that.
Yeah?
Yeah. Because you're the host, it's a lot easier for me than, like, Sid. Just because you're the host, you're out the most.
Yeah.
So I tend to technically get more front time with you than most of the other people do that are in relationships. But having the mentality of treating it like you're at work or doing your own thing when you're not fronting helps me get through that time, because it's like, they'll be back eventually, and I know I miss them now. I can always tell the person who's fronting, hey, you send them a message that I love them and I miss them a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm not asking you to switch or whatever, just doing that, or writing them a message, saving it for later.
Yeah.
Distance makes the heart grow fonder kind of bullshit. It does, but I can always send a message on Discord or a phone that you can see later, write it down and give it to you when I next see you. If I need to say something, have other things in place and not make my only way of coping you. Because you are a big coping mechanism for me, but I need to be able to survive on my own and not rely so heavily on you, because that's not healthy for me to do. Because if we both have mental health struggles, hence DID and other stuff that comes with depression and PTSD and anxiety inherently.
Yeah.
And
yeah, pretty much. Definitely PTSD, but pretty much inherently those other two as well.
I need to be able to survive and feel and process on my own to a degree without you. Yeah. I have to be able to do that by myself, because someone is not going to always be there for you. And as much as that sucks, it's really important to focus on being able to be a little bit self-sufficient with those things, because the other person may not always be feeling good. They might not always be around. Like, they could have their own struggles, or it could just be someone else that you don't know and won't be helpful.
Yeah.
Or there could be like a persecutor close who's causing problems for you and doesn't like you, and they know your triggers just because they've been around and they're playing off of those. So being able to have your own thing where you can step away and take care of yourself too some is very, very important.
Yeah. That's another thing where it helps a lot to have friends and like other members of your support system be outside of the partner system, if at all possible.
Yeah.
So that you have more than one option of someone to go to if you need support. And even if it's not someone you can physically go to, like I have online friends that I could go and talk to if someone were out for you who didn't want to hang out and I was lonely.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Next question would be, what do you do when an alter fronts who doesn't know about the relationship?
An alter fronts who doesn't know about the relationship?
Correct.
For us, we have pre-established boundaries in place. For just like what to do there.
Yeah, we have a pre-typed up message that explains the relationship and some other key things, like where we live and how old we are and stuff, for especially when alters haven't been around the front for whatever reason in a long time.
We also, if I'm close to them at all or touching them because my partner was out, or a friend that I knew and that friend was okay with cuddling or whatever, I will stop that.
Yeah.
And step back, give them space, try to inform them where they are, my name, what's going on, what we were doing, give them some update to try and catch them up to speed, but also not overwhelm them.
Yeah.
From there, do stuff like ask about themselves and try to find out about them, and like whatever they're comfortable with, because they may not know about me, I may not know about them. They may be entirely confused on where they are, or just have never met me personally before, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But I definitely don't treat them like I know them. I don't shame them for not knowing me.
Right.
I don't get upset at them. I give them time and patience, and
try not to make assumptions about what's okay and what isn't, that kind of thing.
That question also ties a little bit into the be a little bit self-sufficient and have things to do by yourself in case the other person doesn't know you and doesn't want to be around you just because they're not comfortable yet. Have some things you can do, and don't be reliant on your partner for everything, because that's an unhealthy level of codependency.
Yeah.
And it's not that you can't rely on your partner, but having something outside of them is necessary.
Yeah, that goes back to the previous question.
Oh, it does, but it also ties into this of, if someone switches that doesn't know you.
Yeah.
Have something else you can do too.
Yeah. In case they're not comfortable hanging out or whatever.
Yeah, because it would really suck if you were to randomly get teleported into someone else's friend group and you just showed up and it's like, oh, by the way, we're all going skiing right now and you have to tag along. Like, don't implicate them in having to do what your partner was doing beforehand, because that would really suck if it happened to you.
Yeah.
It helps to try and put yourself in their shoes to figure it out.
Next question. How do you deal with the situation if the partner system shows PDA to another alter who isn't dating them? So, like, if you were to show physical affection to someone other than me,
like Jade, like I can give hugs to Jade.
Yeah, it depends what it is.
You answer that one, because for me, it's fine with me if you hug Sid or whatever. I trust you, and I don't think that you're gonna like cheat on me with Sid or whatever.
Yeah. There is definitely a line where I would get uncomfortable. Like, if you, without discussing it with me first, started, like, kissing someone else in my system, or someone else of any description.
If I started making out with Jade, that'd be a different issue than just showing PDA to someone else.
Yeah.
It'd be an issue of, I just cheated on my partner by making out with someone else.
There are a lot of situations where I wouldn't care at all, particularly with littles. There's a lot of affection shown to littles who want it, and that is not, I don't see that in any way as cheating, or that doesn't make me uncomfortable at all.
I also think that comes down to what are your boundaries you've set in place.
Yeah, for sure.
And
that's gonna be relationship to relationship for sure.
Because if you're not comfortable with your partner holding hands with someone else, that's up to you.
Well, it's up to you and the partner. If the partner agrees to that boundary, otherwise it needs to be discussed what you're gonna do.
And that always is gonna highly depend on the types of PDA you are okay or aren't okay with seeing or having your partner participate in.
Yeah.
Because if you're not fine with holding hands and they do that, that's a discussion about boundaries at that point.
Yeah.
And making sure that they respect your boundaries and listen to them, and the pre-established ones aren't.
Yeah. Last question, actually, is how would you handle dating with multiple people, and how do you manage the time? So kind of two questions. In terms of, like, poly, we don't actually have a poly relationship in our partner system, at least currently.
Yeah.
But we have discussed to some extent what we would do if someone started wanting that. And the big thing there, like generally with the relationships, is communication and consent and boundaries and all of that. It's making sure to communicate exactly what you are and are not okay with, and try hard not to agree to something that you're not actually okay with. But it does get complicated if somebody were to start having feelings for someone who's already in a relationship with someone else. Just like with singlets, when that happens, that can get complicated and dramatic.
It can, but it's really going to come down to what your boundaries are with your partner and what you are and aren't comfortable with.
Yeah.
And if there's a good mutual respect for each other, it'll be, for the most part, okay.
Yeah. But if we're not talking about a poly relationship and we're talking just about multiple, like, monogamous relationships and managing the time, that is difficult.
Yes.
It's very difficult. It's difficult to manage the time.
It is, really.
And we have it easier of the two relationships because we're both hosts. We, like, by default tend to be out more. But on days when that's not the case, I can't. It's not good. It's frustrating, and it surprises me some how frustrating it is to watch you hang out with other people, since I'm always co-fronting, because it feels like I should be lucky that I get to kind of half hang out with you even when I'm not out, if you are, but it's not like that. And it's hard to not wish it was more like that, because it feels like watching you hang out with someone else and not actually being there. Not quite like watching a movie of you hanging out with someone else, but almost like watching through a window.
Were there any more questions?
No, actually.
No. Okay. Then I guess it'll come down to, do we have anything that we think might be helpful?
Just to say about partner systems?
Yeah.
I don't know if I have anything else essential to say about partner systems. Do you?
I don't think I have anything else that's essential to say about partner systems. I would like to re-say a specific topic, and that's just communicate a lot. Try to communicate all the time, frequently, about everything.
Yeah.
With everybody, even not your partner.
Yeah.
To have things in place, talk about plans, hypothetical scenarios for, like, what if this kind of thing happens? Are we open to the idea of poly, like, not poly?
Yeah.
Try to figure it out for yourself, what you might be into and not.
Communication, consent, and boundaries are the big things for any relationship, but particularly more complicated ones, and you could make a strong argument that partner systems make it more complicated, just from the quantity of people in an extremely close radius.
Yeah. Learning to coexist is pretty important.
Yeah.
And above all else, try to be kind. You know, if you're a singlet that's dating a system or want to learn more about it, to be open to the possibility of dating a system. Like, try to learn more so you understand better.
Yeah.
And also, just be open to learning and understand that it's not always going to be the same. And that's not a bad thing.
After this, we'll probably just grind off camera.
Yeah. Just some other bits, maybe get a few levels just because these are around our level, but we're not getting a ton of XP.
So we'll grind some more off camera because that would be boring to do without also talking about something.
Yeah.
And we ran out of questions. So thank you for watching. If you have more questions or questions about the answers we gave to these questions or any of that, you can feel free to ask in comments or head over to the Discord. The link to that is in the description, as well as the link to our Etsy shop.
Or if you have questions in general. I mean, we love Q&A videos.
Yes.
Or just answering questions in general. And the ID isn't super well known.
Yeah.
And especially with the drama that went on, like, the past couple of years, it's been really misrepresented.
Yeah.
It's nice to answer some questions and help teach people about it, because it's not really well known.
Yeah. But yeah, thanks for watching, and like and subscribe and ring the bell to make sure you see every time we post a new video. And we will do more Dofus soon, starting the actual quests in Astra. But until then, bye!